Hello, welcome to Learning to Drum. I'm your host, Adam Tevlin, and we are in episode 49, week 52. That's right, 52 weeks of drumming. If you followed along this whole season and learned everything in it, you definitely have a good foundation in drumming. As a matter of fact, we've learned the 5 different strokes at the beginning, right? And we could boil those down to actually just 2 strokes, which is the rebound stroke and the controlled stroke, okay? And from there, because we could do the free stroke or rebound stroke, we learned 8/8-16. And that obviously is the precursor to the first rudiment that we ever learned, which was the single stroke roll. And we went on to other exercises as well, like accent exercise on one hand, which differentiates between the downstroke or controlled stroke and the tap upstroke, okay? And because of that, you know the flam. And the flam is nothing more than just a downstroke and tap upstroke. And we demonstrated that earlier this season. There's other rudiments too, like the double stroke roll and learning how to hit twice on each hand. And we started that with the pillow. I encouraged you to do it on the pillow. But if you didn't get there, that's okay. Eventually, we have to increase the speed, and that involves 2 different strokes, right? Which is a free stroke and a controlled stroke, and that's where we get into the exercise double beat. Because you know double beat, you can actually play double stroke rolls at a greater speed. We transferred that knowledge also into like Digga Digga Darz, and the drag exercises and the triplet roll exercise. And because you were able to do roll or drag exercises both in duple and compound rhythms, you get to see really the gamma of how that double stroke roll or drag could be applied. Remember, it boils down to 3 basic rudiments: the single stroke roll, the double stroke roll, and the flam. Anything outside of that is a combination of those, okay? So we learned other rudiments such as the flam tap, the flam accent, the flamadiddle, the paradiddle, the double paradiddle, the half drag, or sometimes called rough, as well as the single drag tap or the single drag, the single Rudiments, and the 5-stroke roll, as well as the multiple bounce roll. Now, the multiple bounce roll wasn't necessarily included in the 26 original standard American drum rudiments. When the Percussive Art Society took over the rudiments in the 1970s, they not only added those 13 rudiments extra on top of the 26, which equals our 40 international rudiments, but inside those 13, one of them is the multiple bounce roll. So technically, we know 13 rudiments. And a couple episodes ago, I mentioned that we've learned 13 rudiments, 14 counting the multiple bounce roll. However, I counted those and we only know 13, so that means I need to teach you one more. As a surprise, you don't have to test on this or anything, but you've already done it before without you even knowing it. And that would be the 9-stroke roll. And what is the 9-stroke roll? Remember, when we talk about 9-stroke roll or 5-stroke roll, you take the rudiment itself, the number on a 5-stroke roll, remember, which is 5, you add 1, and that'll be 6. Okay, divide by 2, and that equals 3. 3 hand alternations. What about the 9-stroke roll? Well, 9. 9 plus 1 equals 10. Divide that by 2, and you got 5. 5 hand alternations. So, where did you play this? Well, simple exercise that we learned towards the beginning of the season, which is Digga Digga Darz. That's right. If you notice that we have 4 16th notes, and then we have 4 doubles, and then there goes the next set of 16th notes. So really that, okay, just without the accent. And you remember, we talked about rolls can be played with the accent or without, and most of the time it's with the accent, traditionally speaking, if you were to demonstrate it. However, in this case scenario for Digga Digga Darz, that's not the case, okay? We could also say, the 7-stroke roll and the triplet roll exercise, but we're not going to get too far ahead of ourselves. We're just going to stick with that 9-stroke roll just so you can see some of the things that we're actually going to do in our second season, which we're going to do more rudiments, okay? We'll talk about the second season in just a little bit. Again, 5 hand alternations. So that means 4 diddles, right, plus the stroke. That last stroke is with the accent, okay? So we got 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that's the 9-stroke roll. You could go ahead and do the same thing that we did with the 5-stroke roll. You can practice it with a metronome. Open, closed, open, which I'll do in a sec, is another way to practice it. So you can see all the tempo changes that happens in your wrist and fingers, right? It affects your wrist and fingers differently as you gain speed or decrease speed, right? So now I'll play that open, closed, open so you can hear what that's going to sound like. You don't have to play with me. Here I go. Okay, so there it is, open, closed, open. And yes, you can play that with the metronome. And I'll go ahead and just show you an example. I'll dial my 16th notes up. I am in 4/4 time. Okay, that's at 100. And I got the high click off. And you just hear what this sounds like. Here I go. Here I go. And okay, that's at 100, like I said, with the 16th notes dialed up. And all I'm doing is I'm playing them 16th notes as far as the doubles, and then I rest until the next beat, right? Hear it again. Here I go. And 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, and resting on 4, right? Okay, so that's one way you can practice it with the metronome. A little faster. Now I'm at 130, so we're jumping up 30 beats per minute. 1, 2, here I go. Okay, so we'll have more stroke rolls in the second season, like the 7-stroke roll, as I talked about earlier, that you already have played in the triplet roll exercise. You didn't know that yet, but now you do. And so you'll have a little bit easier time. And like I said earlier, with all these different strokes and exercises and how exponential that is, you're going to be able to do other things easier down the road. It's still going to be challenging, but because you can do these foundational things, these very basic things, you know, one basketball player that I'm sure most people have heard of in the United States, if not the world, is Michael Jordan. He said, master the basics and everything else will follow. So that is the 9-stroke roll, and now we know 14 rudiments, 14 if you want to count the multiple bounce roll. So be sure to tune into the second season when it's released so you can learn more about these different types of rolls. Now, highlighting other things that you've already learned here in this season is you have a intermediate to almost advanced level of reading rhythm. That's right. As a matter of fact, you can join a grade school band very easily if you're in grade school. If you're in junior high or high school, you could possibly even audition for that band. And then if you're in college, you could probably even join one of those bands knowing the stuff that you know now. Now, you might not have these very hard parts, but it is a foot in the door. And if you're an adult, you can join a community band or community orchestra. I'm sure that there's plenty out there that you can audition for and learn. Now, I understand that playing different percussion instruments is another whole world of learning, but you know the rhythms, you know how to read them, and it's just transferring that to how to play a tambourine or how to play a triangle or how to play the bass drum, etc. And if you liked reading this type of stuff and you wanted more material to practice on, to even get more experience, there are 2 books that I'd like to recommend. One that I've taught out of for the last 27 years. This is actually my 35th year of teaching, so it's been a bit since I've been teaching out of this, but this is the Alfred's Drum Method Book 1. It is a very good book. It's very comprehensive. It takes the same approach of kind of pretty much of what I take, you know, with reading rhythms, learning about different music terms, incorporating rudiments. I think I do a little bit more of incorporating of the rudiments. That's okay. It is still a very good book. I've taught many years out of it, and it has done some really good things for a lot of students. As a matter of fact, I talked to one of the authors, David Black, while asking him if I could teach out of this book on the show, but unfortunately the publishing company wouldn't allow it, and that's very understandable. But if you wanted some extra reading just to bring on the challenge for yourself, by all means pick up this book, Alfred's Drum Method Book 1, as well as another book that precedes that, which is the Ludwig Drum Method Book 1 as well. And in here it has, again, a comprehensive way of reading music. You start out with very basics. I think in page 30-something, 35 or 36 in here, you get into 16th notes. So I take a little bit more of a faster track. And like I said, after reading this exercises and the solos and learning to drum book 1, then we can go into something like this and just brush up on some things, making sure that, you are up to level of your reading and everything like that. So 2 books that I recommend for you. We're going to have the links down there in the comments for you, so that way you can go find those out for yourself. And other things that we've had in the season is we had 6 wonderful guests that shared their knowledge and their expertise. Kelly Ray Tubbs was our first one, talking about the history of the practice pad. Then we had Dom Familero, who's on the show for 2 weeks in 1 episode, and that was episode 2. He talked about the history of the drum technique. And then there's Kelvin Ward that came after that, again, for 2 weeks, or 1 episode, but that was partitioned into 2 weeks, and he talked about HBCU and drum corps style playing, as well as the importance of playing in time. It was a wonderful time that we had together with Kai on, as well as the other 2 guests before that. After Kelvin was Will James, and we talked about the concept of the multiple bounce roll, concert roll, buzz roll, press roll, you name it, it is the same thing. And we talked about his wonderful book, The Modern Concert Snare Drum Roll. After that, our 4th guest was Clarence Boudreau and his Cajun practice pad. Remember, you don't have to play, you get to play. Or you don't have to practice, you get to practice. It's a very good way to look at it, right? Even though that seems like it's hard work and stuff, but we're all in this to have fun. If you're not having fun, then yes, you want to do something else. And of course, last but not least, we had Mr. Fred Pierce on the show. We actually paid a visit to his drum shop and take a look at around and all the different drums that he had. And then, of course, he shared his legacy in the drum business and some good pointers for people who are wanting to get back into it or just starting out. And it's never too late to start and never too early to start, and all the health benefits that it has for you. And we talked about that as well. So very, very happy and privileged that I've had those guests on the show. And you might be wondering, what happened to my son Kai? He was on at the beginning of the season, and then we had him back on to kind of check on him, see how he's doing. And so I just thought I'd bring him back on so we can see how he's doing, and he can share with you some of the things that he likes to do today. Remember that hand clap that we did at the beginning of the season? It was not only a way of practicing to count yourself off before you play, but it was also your very first rhythm lesson that we learned how to read some weeks after that, right? Remember the hand clap? It's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and okay. I'm going to count you off, and we'll see if we can clap them on the show. Here we go. Ready, everybody? We can do this together one last time for the season. Here we go. 1 and 2 and here we go. And 1 and 2 and... Hey, welcome back to the show, Kai.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's been a bit. As you can tell, he's grown some since the beginning of the season, and he hasn't been on the show, I understand. Kai, have you been playing the drums? The audience wants to know if you're still playing the drums, or...
it's been a while. Mm-hmm. I don't practice at all, so...
Yeah, but do you ever, play the drums, or is it just kind of like you moved on to other things?
I'm still thinking about it, but I've kind of moved on to other things. Mm-hmm. Like reading, which I've done for a while, and I like history, sketching, and metal detecting a little bit, so. Yeah,
those are all great things to do, and, I just encourage you to, whatever you do like to do in life, just learn as much as you can about it, and as long as it's not hurting anybody else or yourself, hey, I'm okay with that. How about, I know you've played piano for some time, and the audience may not know that, but do you still play piano at all, a little bit?
Sometimes I practice for subjects for school. Once in a while, I might practice for probably 15 minutes just to add hours to school or record book. So
Yeah, there's a certain requirement. He's homeschooled. There's a certain requirement of subjects that he has to have. And obviously piano was one of those ones when it comes to music that you're learning both rhythm, melody, and harmony all at the same time, as opposed to just the practice pad, which is rhythm. Now, I know if you had experience with music, whether it be the piano or drums, has any of that music education transferred over to any area of life that maybe helped you out, like maybe math or science or anything like that?
just that anything that you want to get good at takes practice.
Okay, there you go.
And dedication.
Yeah, absolutely. And it goes along with anything else that you're dedicated to reading. He's read more books in my lifetime, and I'm not proud to say that, but he is a very good reader, reading some of the most, I would say, upperclassmen, college reading level, definitely, and I'm very proud of you for that. And remember, like I said before, you can always pick up the drums. You don't have to do something that's very strict or anything. You can pick up those sticks and play a beat on the drum set just for fun. There's nothing wrong with that. I just know that when I'm teaching kids or adults, that do want to perform in some type of ensemble, I have to teach them everything. So it's not just a beat on the drum set or whatever. Yeah, so I just encourage you that whatever you do, just like you said, be dedicated at it, learn as much as you can, and work hard at it. And that's the key thing, is working hard. So I really appreciate you taking the courage and the time to be on the show at the beginning of the season, to come back afterwards so we can check up on you. It takes a lot of courage to do that, to talk in front of a camera, even today.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, oh, hey, my pleasure, and I'm hoping the audience gets a kick out of it as well. We're going to send them off, and you remember that hand clap we just did, bringing them on the show? Well, we're going to go ahead and do that one last time of the season so we can poof them off, okay? Here we go. You remember the hand clap?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Very good. Okay, here we go. I'm going to count everybody off. Here we go. 1 and 2, and here we go. And oh, there he goes. Well, that was Kai, and it was really nice of him to come on the show. It's a little nerve-wracking sometimes to talk in front of cameras. I get that. Now, moving on. What is Season 2 going to be all about? When is Season 2 going to come out? All that kind of good stuff. Well, Season 2 is to be determined on its release date. However, I do have to make some changes as far as what I did with Season 1. I don't know if you know this or not, but it takes me 8 to 12 hours to edit one episode, and that's a lot of work. And this is why it's taken me so long just to release this first season. So the next season, I'm debating on whether or not if I can hire some help. Maybe that'll help me out. And I want to hear your thoughts in the comments down there if you have some time, is maybe go live with Season 2. That's right, yeah, every episode go live. I don't have to edit. Not only that, but I get to answer questions. And so I'll dedicate a little portion of every episode, so that way you folks that are hanging with me live, you're more than welcome to ask those questions. I'll be able to answer them live with you. So you're also going to see all kinds of mistakes from me, and maybe some interruptions from my kids. Who knows? But live is always interesting. But yes, leave a comment in there, seeing if that is going to be something that you'd be interested in, if you think that'd be a little bit more exciting to see it live rather than record it and canned. All right, so other things that we're going to get into Season 2, we talked about rudiments, more rudiments, and we're also going to go ahead and get into drum set. So don't go buying a drum set. Remember what I said about that. We're going to get into all that, different price points, what's your budget like, what can you do with X amount of dollars or even no dollars, okay? So there's different types of scenarios depending on your situation. So stay tuned for Season 2. If this is your first time watching, of course, go back to Episode 1, catch up back with us, learn all those cool things we just talked about. Until then, it's been a pleasure of presenting Season 1 to you of Learning to Drum. And be sure to check out my Facebook page, Learning to Drum. I'll have the link down there at the bottom for you to go ahead and give it a like. And that way you can go ahead and keep up with the latest and greatest on when that Season 2 is going to be released. I'm your host, Adam Tevlin, on Learning to Drum. And always remember to keep swinging those sticks.